The battle had ended hours ago, but the city still burned. The skies above were black with smoke, and the air carried the sharp smell of scorched metal. Broken towers leaned against each other like dying giants. Streets that once held markets and music were now littered with the remains of war-shattered stone, twisted steel, and the silent shapes of those who would never rise again. Captain Ryan Hale moved carefully through the ruins, his boots crunching on debris. The faint hiss of steam from a collapsed generator echoed in the distance. His rifle was low in his hands, but his senses were sharp. Even after years in the Galactic front, he had learned one thing: the quiet after a battle was often the most dangerous moment. He had come here on orders. His unit was to secure the last sector of the Thaleri capital, searching for high-value targets and rescuing any survivors who might still be friendly to the newly formed alliance between Earth and the Thaleri royal loyalists. Most of his men were elsewhere, sweeping through the lower districts. Ryan had taken the palace grounds alone. The palace had been beautiful once. He could see that even now. Arched walkways, stone inlays of silver, towering spires that caught the sun in brighter days. Now they were scarred by plasma fire, their beauty cracked and bleeding. As Ryan turned a corner into the main courtyard, he froze. She was there. Princess Serenia of the Thaleri Empire stood in the middle of the ruins, her silver crown tilted slightly on her head, as if it had nearly fallen during the chaos. Her long ceremonial robe was torn at the edges, dust and ash clinging to the fine silk. Her bright violet eyes locked onto him with an intensity that made him feel like he had stepped into a trap. For a moment, neither moved. He had seen her once before, at a distant war council, standing behind her father, never speaking, only watching. She had been calm then, regal, untouchable, but now, she looked desperate. Human, she said, her voice carrying over the crackle of burning rubble. Please, marry me. Ryan almost thought he had misheard her. His mind tried to process the words, but they didn't fit in the world he knew. Marry her. Here now. He blinked, lowering his rifle slightly. What? She took a step toward him, her movements slow but deliberate. Before galactic law strips away my crown. Her voice trembled slightly at the end, though she tried to hide it. He could see the tension in her hands, the way her fingers curled into her palms, as if bracing herself for his refusal. Ryan's instincts told him to be cautious. This was the last surviving royal of an empire that had once sent fleets against Earth. The woman in front of him represented a people who had once called humanity a primitive flame soon to burn out. And yet, here she was, asking for something no soldier could ever expect. Why me? He asked, his voice steady but edged with suspicion. She stopped a few steps away from him. Smoke swirled between them. Because you are the only one left who can save my throne and my people. Her eyes were locked on his, unblinking. There was no manipulation there, no cold, royal calculation, just urgency, fear, and something that looked almost like trust. Ryan's heart was still racing from the fight earlier, but now it pounded for another reason, entirely. You're telling me, he said slowly, that if I don't marry you right now, you lose your crown? Yes, she said. And if I lose it, the ones who take my place will bring a darkness this galaxy has not seen in centuries. Her words hit him like a punch. He didn't know if she was exaggerating or telling the exact truth, but her tone left no room for doubt that she believed it with every breath. The wind shifted, carrying with it the distant sound of shouting. Somewhere beyond the palace, someone was still hunting. Time was running out. Serenia stepped closer, lowering her voice. Captain Hale, I do not have the luxury to explain everything here. But I swear to you, if you refuse, my people will fall into the hands of those who will destroy not only my world, but yours as well. Ryan looked at her for a long moment, his mind caught between his soldier's instinct to protect Earth first, and the strange pull of the plea in her voice. Somewhere, deep down, he knew this moment would change the course of his life forever. Ryan didn't lower his gaze. He wanted answers. Princess Serenia must have seen it in his eyes, because she took a steadying breath and began to speak quickly, as if each word was a step ahead of an approaching storm. "The Galactic Concord," she said, "is older than my empire, older than your planet's first machines that reached space. It has rules that bind every recognized civilization. Some are fair, others are cruel. One of them is about succession." Her voice was tense, but clear. She was speaking like someone who had repeated this truth many times in her own mind, yet hated every word. "In times of war or crisis," she continued, "if the last ruler of a bloodline remains unbonded, without a life partner, the throne is declared unstable. The crown is stripped, and the Concord appoints a replacement from among the political rivals." Ryan frowned. "That sounds like a way to avoid weak rulers during war." "Yes," she said, "but it is also a weapon. If someone kills or removes every heir, then waits for the law to take effect, the kingdom falls into their hands without a single shot fired." Ryan's mind raced. "And you're saying you're the last?" Serenia's shoulders sank slightly. "My father is dead. My brother, executed during the coup 2 months ago. My cousins are either traitors or already in exile. I am all that remains of my line." Her voice grew quieter, almost a whisper. "And now, the High Regent, the one who orchestrated this, waits for the clock to run out. If I am not bonded before the next cycle ends." She didn't finish the sentence. Ryan's soldier instincts calculated the timing. "A galactic cycle is what? 12 human hours?" "Yes," she said, her tone sharp with urgency. "And more than half of it is already gone." He could feel the weight of her desperation now. This wasn't just politics. It was survival for her, and perhaps for millions of others. "So why me?" he asked again. "You must have had people, allies." "I had allies," she said, bitterly. "Now they hide in shadows or make their peace with my enemy. I need someone who is recognized by the Concord as neutral, someone who has no part in Thaleri politics, someone the Regent cannot accuse of being a tool." Her eyes held his. "You are a captain in the Earth Defense Force. Your world is an ally to my people under the treaty signed last year. You have rank, you have honor, and you saved my life once." Ryan blinked. "That sniper in the Eastern Market. You remember that?" "How could I forget?" she said softly. "I was disguised then. You didn't know who I was, yet you pulled me from the line of fire." Ryan shifted uncomfortably. He had saved many in his career, without knowing or caring who they were. But hearing her say it now, in this ruined courtyard, gave the memory a strange weight. "You're asking me to put my life and my planet in the middle of your civil war," he said. "I am asking you," Serenia replied, "to stand between my people and the darkness that will consume them if I fall. The Regent's rule will not stop at my borders. He will take your alliance, twist it, and turn your own fleets into his." Her words landed like cold iron. The distant sound of engines echoed through the ruined streets. Ryan glanced toward the sky. Small patrol ships were sweeping the area. Their time was running out. Serenia stepped closer, her voice low but intense. "I will not lie to you, Captain Hale. This marriage will make you a target for the rest of your life. It will tie you to my throne in ways you cannot yet imagine, but it will also save millions. If you refuse, they will not survive the year." Ryan met her gaze again. The violet in her eyes seemed brighter against the dark smoke around them. There was no fear for herself there, only for her people. For a moment, Ryan thought of Earth, of the war that had almost reached his home years ago, of the cities they had rebuilt, and he thought of what it would mean to watch another world fall, knowing he could have stopped it. He exhaled slowly. "You're telling me if I marry you, the Concord can't remove you from the throne?" Yes, she said firmly. They can challenge me in politics. They can send assassins. But they cannot take my crown without shattering their own laws. Ryan's jaw tightened. The decision ahead felt heavier than any mission he had ever been given. Before he could answer, a sharp crack split the air, a plasma round striking the wall behind them. The enemy had found them. Serenia's hand went to his arm. Captain, please. Ryan tightened his grip on his rifle, his heart pounding. The choice could no longer wait. The plasma shot still echoed in Ryan's ears when he dropped behind a half-collapsed wall. Pieces of stone clattered to the ground, dust filling the air. Serenia crouched beside him, her robe dragging in the rubble. She was breathing hard, not from fear but from urgency. She kept her eyes on him, waiting for his answer even as danger closed in. Ryan peeked over the wall. 2 enemy soldiers in black armor were advancing through the courtyard, weapons ready. They were moving slow, confident, knowing their prey had nowhere to run. He fired twice. One went down, the other dove for cover. This is the last time I'll ask. Serenia sighed, her voice sharp but trembling underneath. Will you marry me, Captain Hale? Ryan looked at her. This wasn't a normal decision. He wasn't deciding between orders. He wasn't even deciding between life and death. He was deciding whether to tie his fate, and maybe Earth's future, to a woman he barely knew, a princess from a people who had once been his enemies. He thought of the war. Years ago, when Thaleri warships had burned human cities. He had been a young soldier then, filled with anger at their cruelty. He had lost friends to their raids. But then he remembered the market on Yevra Station, the day a sniper had taken aim at a civilian woman. He had pushed her out of the way, taken the shot on his armor, and only later realized she had been watching him with those same violet eyes. He had saved her without knowing her name, and now she was asking him to save her again, but this time, it was not her life at stake. It was her world. Another plasma round struck the wall above them, sending sparks across the stone. Ryan's mind raced. If he said no, she would be unprotected when the Concord's law took her throne. The High Regent would win without even needing to fire another shot. And Ryan knew deep in his gut that man would not stop at the Thaleri Empire's borders. You're asking for a paper marriage, right? Ryan said at last, his voice low. Serenia hesitated, then nodded. Yes, the bond will be legal in the Concord's eyes. But nothing more is required of you. You will not have to live with me, or share my life, unless you choose to. Ryan studied her expression. He could see she was telling the truth. This was not a trick to chain him to her court. She needed his name, his rank, his status, nothing else. Still, you realize, he said, that if I do this, I become part of your fight. That's not a small thing. Her lips pressed together, and for a moment her royal composure cracked. I realize, she whispered, and I wish I could spare you from it. But I have no one else left to turn to. Ryan leaned back against the wall. He could hear the enemy soldiers' boots crunching closer. Time was running out. He met her eyes one more time. If I do this, we do it my way. Her brow furrowed. Your way? Ryan gave a small, wry smile. No palace ceremony, no politics. We do it fast, quiet, and on neutral ground. And you tell me everything, no secrets. If I'm risking my life for your crown, I get the full truth. Serena stared at him for a heartbeat. Then she nodded once. Agreed. Ryan rose from cover and fired 2 more shots, forcing the last soldier to retreat. He turned back to her. Then it settled. Her eyes widened slightly, as if she hadn't truly believed he would say yes until this moment. The smallest flicker of relief crossed her face, quickly hidden behind her usual royal control. They moved quickly through the ruined palace. Ryan, leading, his rifle ready. He could feel her presence behind him. Light steps, steady breathing, the faint clink of the crown still resting on her head. When they reached a side chamber, hidden from the courtyard, Ryan motioned for her to stop. We'll hold here. We'll call in witnesses. Get this done, then get out before your regent's men find us again." Serenia took a deep breath. "Captain Hale, Ryan," he corrected. Her lips curved faintly. "Ryan, you are about to change the fate of an empire. I hope you understand that." Ryan checked his weapon. "I'm a soldier. I just do what needs to be done." But deep down, he knew this was different. This wasn't just a mission. This was a turning point, not just for her world, but for his life. The chamber they had found was once part of the royal garden hall. Now, it was a skeleton of its former beauty, cracked marble floors, shattered stained glass, and the faint smell of smoke in the air. Moonlight streamed in through a broken skylight, casting pale light over the rubble. Ryan scanned the room first, checking for movement. The walls were thick enough to block most sensors, and the single door could be barricaded. "We'll be safe here for a while," he said. Serenia stepped inside quietly, her eyes moving over the ruined space. For a second, Ryan saw something flicker in her gaze, sadness, maybe grief, as if she remembered the hall from better days. She walked to the far end, where a cracked stone bench still stood, and set her crown gently on it. From a small pouch at her waist, she pulled out a thin chain of silver links, each etched with tiny markings that shimmered faintly in the moonlight. Ryan had never seen metal quite like it. "This," she said softly, "is the binding chain. It records the life signatures of two people and marks them as bonded in the Concord's archives. No priest, no court, no celebration is needed. Only the chain and the vows." Ryan nodded, stepping closer. "And you're sure this will hold up to their law?" "It has for over 2,000 cycles," she said. "Once it binds, no one can deny the marriage without shattering the Concord's oldest traditions." Ryan studied the chain for a moment. "All right, how do we do this?" Serenia hesitated, then glanced toward the doorway. "We will need 2 witnesses. That is also tradition. One from my people, one from yours, if possible. The Concord values balance." Ryan activated his comm. "Diaz, I need you in the East Wing. Bring that Thaleri guard we picked up earlier, and hurry." Minutes later, the sound of boots on stone announced their arrival. Corporal Diaz, a tough, dark-eyed human soldier who had fought beside Ryan for years, stepped in, his rifle slung over his shoulder. Beside him walked a Thaleri palace guard, his armor dented and stained with dried blood, his arm in a sling. Diaz raised an eyebrow at the sight of the chain. "Captain, you want to explain what's going on?" Ryan shook his head. "Not right now. Just stand there and watch. You're my witness." Diaz muttered something under his breath, but moved into position. The Thaleri guard took the opposite side, bowing to Serenia with deep respect. Serenia lifted the chain, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "In the eyes of the stars, I bind myself to you," she said, placing one end around Ryan's neck. The cold metal touched his skin, sending a faint tingle down his spine. Ryan repeated the words she had taught him, his human accent heavy but clear. "In the eyes of the stars, I bind myself to you." The chain's markings began to glow faintly, reacting to their combined biosignatures. Serenia then spoke the second vow, her tone softer now. "Until the void takes us." Ryan repeated, "It, until the void takes us." The chain tightened slightly, not painfully, but firmly, before releasing its glow into a thin band of light that wrapped around both their right wrists. It pulsed once, then faded, leaving only a faint mark like silver ink on their skin. "It is done," Serenia said quietly. Diaz stared at Ryan. "You just got married in a burned-down garden. That's a new one." Ryan ignored him. He was watching Serenia. There was no joy in her face, no smile like a bride might have in human weddings. But there was relief, the kind that came from stepping back from the edge of a cliff. From outside, the sound of distant engines reminded them they didn't have much time. Ryan turned to Diaz and the Thaleri guard. We're leaving now. They moved quickly through the halls, heading for the hidden service tunnels Ryan had found earlier. As they descended into the dark passages beneath the palace, Saranya walked beside him, the faint silver mark on her wrist catching the light. For the first time since they met in the courtyard, she spoke without urgency. Thank you, Ryan. He glanced at her. Don't thank me yet. We're not out of this. But deep down, Ryan knew the moment had already changed something between them. The bond might have started as a formality, a shield against the law, but it was real in the eyes of the galaxy. And now, whether he liked it or not, her fate was tied to his. The escape tunnels were narrow and damp, carved long ago for palace servants to move unseen. Their footsteps echoed softly in the dark as Ryan led the way with a small wrist lamp, the pale light cutting through the shadows. Behind him, Saranya walked silently, her long robe brushing the stone floor. Diaz and the wounded Thaleri guard followed at a steady distance, keeping watch for pursuers. The air smelled of dust and rusted metal. Somewhere above them, the city still smoldered. But here, in these tunnels, the world felt like it had paused. The kind of stillness that came before a storm. Ryan didn't speak until they reached the far exit, a rusted hatch that opened into the ruins of an old market district. He pushed it open slowly, scanning the streets beyond. No movement, no sound but the faint hum of distant generators. They stepped out into the night air, the stars cold and bright overhead. A stolen Thaleri shuttle waited in the shadows of a collapsed building, just where Ryan had hidden it earlier in the day. Once they were aboard and lifting off, Saranya finally spoke. Her voice was steady, but Ryan could hear the weight behind it. It won't take long for him to know, she said. Ryan didn't have to ask who she meant, the High Regent. How fast will the news spread? Ryan asked, keeping his eyes on the shuttle's controls. Saranya gave a bitter laugh. Faster than light. The Concord has marriage registries that transmit instantly to every member world. By now, the Regent has already heard. And she was right. Far away, in the Grand Council chamber of the Regent's flagship, the news had arrived. A holographic projection of the Concord's seal spun in the air, displaying the official record. Princess Saranya, of Thaleri, bonded to Captain Ryan. Hail of Earth. The High Regent's claws tightened on the edge of his throne until the metal groaned. His eyes, cold and sharp as blades, narrowed in fury. The plan had been perfect. Wait out the law. Let the Concord strip Saranya's crown and take her throne without firing a single shot. But now the law had been used against him. He stood, his long robe sweeping across the floor, and turned to his advisors. Find them, he said in a low, dangerous tone. Bring them to me alive. I want the galaxy to see what happens when someone plays the law against me. Back in the shuttle, Ryan was guiding them toward open space. The city's burning skyline fell away beneath them, replaced by the black stretch of the void. Sir sat beside him, her hands folded in her lap. Her posture was calm, but her eyes betrayed her thoughts. She knew what the Regent's reaction would be. You just made yourself his greatest enemy, she said quietly. Ryan glanced at her. You were already his target. Now he has to deal with me too. A small, almost surprised smile touched her lips, but it faded quickly. This changes everything. The Regent can't take my crown through the law now, but he can still take it through war, and he will. Ryan's jaw tightened. Then we make sure he doesn't. Diaz, sitting behind them, leaned forward. Captain, with respect, we're talking about going up against half her empire. Just the four of us. Ryan kept his gaze on the stars ahead. We won't be alone. The Concord will back her claim. The Loyalists will rally when they know she's still alive. Sir nodded slowly. Yes, and now, with you as my bondmate, Earth is tied to my throne. The Regent can't risk open war with your people, without inviting Concord sanctions. Ryan didn't answer right away. He was thinking not just about strategy, but about the reality of what they had done. A few hours ago, he had been a soldier on a mission. Now, he was the legal husband of an alien princess, bound by the oldest law in the galaxy, and somewhere deep inside, he wondered if this was the first step into something far bigger than either of them could imagine. The shuttle slipped into the upper atmosphere, the stars growing brighter through the canopy. Behind them, the city burned on a reminder that their fight was far from over. Saranya's voice broke the silence. "Ryan, I know you didn't do this for me. You did it for my people. But still, thank you." He looked at her for a moment, then back at the controls. "Don't thank me yet, princess. We still have to survive what comes next." And in that moment, neither of them knew that the Regent's fleets were already moving, hunting them across the stars. The shuttle rocked violently as they broke free of the atmosphere. Warning lights blinked red across the console. Somewhere behind them, a plasma bolt had grazed the rear hull, leaving a trail of smoke that drifted into space. Ryan's hands stayed steady on the controls. He'd flown in worse. Beside him, Serenia gripped the armrest, her knuckles pale against her smooth skin. She didn't look afraid, not exactly, but there was tension in her eyes, as though she was holding something heavy inside. "Hold on," Ryan said, adjusting their heading toward the edge of the star system. The view through the canopy shifted. The burning world below shrank, replaced by the endless stretch of stars and the faint glow of a nebula in the distance. But their path wasn't clear. 3 blips appeared on the radar, closing fast. Diaz swore under his breath. "They've got interceptors on us." Ryan didn't hesitate. He cut power to the primary thrusters, letting the shuttle drift. The enemy ships adjusted course, slowing to match speed. Ryan waited until they were close enough, then slammed the emergency boosters. The shuttle surged forward like a kicked animal, the sudden burst throwing everyone against their seats. The interceptors fell behind, their weapons fire scattering harmlessly into the dark. Within minutes, the radar was empty. Only then did Ryan allow himself to exhale. "We're clear. For now." The silence that followed was thick. The hum of the engines was the only sound. Serenia turned her head toward him, studying him like she was trying to see something beyond the man in front of her. "Why did you say yes?" she asked quietly. Ryan kept his eyes on the controls. "You needed it, and I was the only one who could do it." "That's not what I mean." Her voice was softer now, almost hesitant. "You could have walked away. No one would have blamed you. You could have gone home, safe, and left my people to their fate." He didn't answer immediately. Part of him wanted to brush it off with a soldier's joke, but he could hear the sincerity in her tone. She wasn't looking for strategy, she was looking for truth. Ryan finally glanced at her. "Because you're fighting for them. And I've seen too many leaders who only fight for themselves. You're different. You're not the enemy I thought you were." Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to say something but didn't trust her own voice. For a moment, her royal composure slipped, and he saw the woman behind the crown, someone who carried the weight of a whole world on her shoulders. The silver mark on her wrist caught the faint glow from the console. Ryan's gaze lingered on it, realizing how strange it was, this bond between them, something the galaxy would see as a sacred union, yet born out of pure necessity. But still, something about it felt real. Serenia turned back toward the stars. "You may not believe this, Ryan, but you've already changed more than you realize. When my people hear that I survived, and that I am bonded to a human ally, it will give them hope. And hope is the one thing the Regent cannot control." Diaz, sitting behind them, chuckled. "Hope's good. But we're still outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Ryan smirked faintly. Never cared much for the odds. The shuttle entered the shimmering blue of hyperspace, the stars stretching into long lines before vanishing into a tunnel of light. The sudden calm after the escape felt almost unreal. For a while, no one spoke. Then Serenia said quietly, "When this is over, when my throne is safe, you will be free to end this bond, if you wish." Ryan didn't respond right away. He was thinking about the war, the Regent, the Concord, and the violet eyes that had met his in the burning courtyard. "We'll see where we stand when we get there," he said finally. Serenia looked at him, and for the first time since they met, her expression wasn't weighed down by politics or fear. It was something else entirely, something uncertain, but not unwelcome. Outside, hyperspace carried them toward an unknown future. Inside, the truth hung between them like a fragile thread, a bond formed out of necessity, but already becoming something more. The war reached its breaking point sooner than anyone expected. The Regent's fleets pressed hard, burning cities from orbit, forcing Serenia's loyalists into the last strongholds. But the human alliance, small though it was, struck where it hurt the most. Supply lines were cut. Propaganda broadcasts showed images of Serenia alive, standing beside a human soldier. To the Regent, it was humiliation. To the people, it was a spark. The final battle came in the skies, over Aloria Prime. Ryan piloted his borrowed strike craft, weaving through enemy fire. Serenia was not in some distant command center. She was in the heart of the defense fleet, her voice steady over the comms, rallying her forces. When the Regent's flagship appeared, Ryan knew what he had to do. He dove through the chaos, guns blazing, clearing a path for Serenia's cruiser. Together, human and Alorian ships drove forward. The battle was fierce, brutal. But at last, the flagship's hull broke apart in a blaze of fire, drifting lifeless into the void. The Regent was gone. Cheers erupted across the channels. The war, for the first time in years, was over. The palace was in ruins when they returned. Marble columns lay shattered, gardens trampled, but the heart of the city was alive. Again, crowds filled the streets, chanting her name. Serenia walked among them, her once pristine gown now torn and scorched, but her head held high. Ryan stayed a few steps behind, feeling out of place. He was just a soldier, a man from a blue planet far from here. This wasn't his crown, his people, or his home. When they reached the palace steps, Serenia turned to face him. Her voice carried across the crowd. "This man," she said, pointing to him, "stood with me when no one else would. When my world burned, when my people were hunted, he gave me his word and his hand, not for power, not for wealth, but because it was right." The crowd murmured, their cheers softening into something more respectful. Ryan shifted awkwardly under so many eyes. Serenia stepped closer, her voice lowering so only he could hear. "Ryan, the law says our bond was to save my crown. That purpose is fulfilled. But if you wish, I will release you today. You can go home free." Ryan looked at her. The violet in her eyes was brighter now, free of the weight she had carried for so long. He thought about everything they had been through, the running, the fighting, the moments in between where words felt heavier than bullets. "I could go," he admitted, "but then I'd be leaving behind the one person in this galaxy who actually makes me want to stay." Her breath caught. For a heartbeat, the noise of the crowd seemed to fade. "This time," Ryan said, his voice steady, "if I stay, it won't be because of the law. It'll be because I choose to." The corners of her lips lifted, slow and unsure at first, then with the warmth of something real. She took his hand, not as a queen sealing a treaty, but as a woman accepting something precious. She turned back to her people and raised their joined hands high. "Then let it be known, this is not a bond of politics. This is a bond of choice, and I will share my crown with the man I trust, the man who fought for us when we had nothing left." The cheer that followed shook the air, rolling over the palace like thunder. Ryan felt the weight of her hand in his, not heavy, but certain. The crown might sit on her head, but for the first time, it didn't feel like she bore it alone. That night, the city glowed with celebration. Lights danced in the sky. Music filled the streets. Ryan and Serenia stood on the palace balcony, looking out at the reborn capital. She glanced at him. "You realize?" she said softly. "Your people will never believe this story." Ryan smirked. "Doesn't matter. I'll know it's real." Below them, the people of Eloria sang the name of their queen, and for the first time, the name of the human who stood beside her. The crown had been saved, the throne restored, but more than that, a choice had been made, and it was theirs. In the endless night sky above, the stars shone like witnesses to a promise, one not bound by law, but by something far stronger.